Flight Sports TV, man. That's my dude. I rolls with him.
You heard what the man said. It's Flight Sports TV.
Like I said, Flight Sports TV, that's where it's at.
Flight Sports TV.
What's going on, people? It's Flight Sports TV. I appreciate y'all for checking with me. You already know we got a special exclusive interview today, ladies and gentlemen, with criminal justice reformist Cynthia and your partner in crime. Can you introduce them? Introduce yourselves today. You live on Flight Sports TV.
First of all, thanks for having us. I'm Cynthia Alvarado, and this is my comrade. Tell them who you are.
Shut away, yo.
Right, we appreciate you for having you. So for the people that's just joining in, let everybody know, like you said, you guys are doing criminal justice reform. Let everybody know where you guys are from. Introduce yourself. Let everybody know where you reside.
So we're both Philadelphia natives. We were both wrongfully convicted in the city of Philadelphia, sentenced to life without parole. I was victorious of winning my federal habeas after 12 long years. I gave my life sentence back, and now I'm a very public activist fighting for criminal justice reform, but to also end life without parole in Pennsylvania, and I'm ending solitary confinement. Go ahead.
I am likewise. My name is Chetaweo. I spent 51 years in prison for wrongly conviction. Over 44 years of those years was spent in solitary confinement.
Right, that's unbelievable. Give everybody a backstory of some of the things that you guys had. What led to you getting in that position? We ladies first. We'll start with you, Cynthia.
So, like my comrade here, we both believe in the Sixth Amendment to a fair trial. So when we first encountered the system, we believed in a fair trial, that we would go to trial and beat our charges and go home. Unfortunately, we were faced with life without parole charges, which were mandatory sentences. We both succumbed to the convictions, and we were convicted and basically sentenced to life without parole. My situation was I went to a park with a cousin of mine. Something happened outside of my car, that I didn't have any knowledge of, and instead of me, cooperating with the police, I decided that I would just, fight my case and give my co-defendant a chance to fight his case. Like I said before, I'm fortunate to say I was convicted, and I spent 12 years in a state prison. And had I never won my federal habeas petition, I would have died in prison, because in Pennsylvania, we do not have parole. Go ahead, Chidaway.
My situation is similar. When I was arrested, I was 18 years old for falsely being accused of being involved in a gang murder. She had no awareness, wasn't even from the gang any longer.
Right.
And I went to trial, knowing that innocent people do not get found guilty and go to prison. So I went to trial, had a jury trial, was found guilty. As a result, because the police, in collaboration with the DA office at the time, withhold evidence that could show that I was innocent. Nevertheless, the jury didn't hear this, nor my lawyer know about this. So I found guilty, went through the appeal process, was all shot down. Then when Larry Krasner became a new DA, he viewed my case, and he found that in the police administration building, they had evidence, 51 years sat there, showing that I was innocent, and what was hold from the jury and my lawyers. So I should have never been convicted and never been in prison.
So really quick, to elaborate a little further. So in my case, I had a jury trial, and the jurors deliberated for 3 days. They were confused as to my involvement in the crime, so they kept asking questions to the judge. Could she be guilty just for aiding after a crime was committed? The problem with that is that when the judge responded, she allowed the prosecutor to change her answer from no it could, and I was convicted because of that. That's prosecutorial misconduct. The way she responded to the jury was illegal. The jury convicted me basically thinking that I would get about a year for aiding after a crime, but because I was charged as an accomplice, aiding after the fact was not enough for accomplice liability. So the judge misinstructed the jury on the charge, and I was convicted because of a mistake that could have been prevented had the judge responded legally to the jury. And that's how I was able to win, my federal habeas. In Cheddar Wales' case, the police interrogated the suspect who actually committed the crime. However, he was held in there for 10 hours and his statements kept changing. The police was more interested in convicting Cheddar Wales. So when he went to trial, there was statements that could have cleared him, at trial, exonerating him right there. Basically, it's called exculpatory evidence, clearing you from guilt or blame. However, the police withheld that information from him during trial, and he had to go to trial without that evidence. That's a Brady violation. It's unconstitutional. And what they did to us was horrible. These are convictions that were illegal. They were obtained illegally by his withholding evidence that could have cleared them. And for me was misinstructed the jury on the charge. So just to sum it down.
Wow, that sounds crazy. What was it like when some of these charges came down? Was that your first time getting in trouble? If you don't mind me asking.
Yes, it was my first time that I encountered a criminal case. I went through a state of culture shock because I had a murder bracelet on my wrist that said murder.
Oh.
And I was like, wow, I didn't commit murder. I was like, this has to be a mistake. I'm going to get out of this. However, the felony murder law is a very serious law that's very racist that we still have in Pennsylvania that holds you accountable for homicide, even if you did not commit the crime. So I took it seriously, but I didn't because I would have never thought in a million years that I would go to prison for something that someone else did. So the charges were crazy, but what was really crazy was that, I never really got to go home, that I really was convicted for something that I did not do, something that was committed by someone else clearly. But because of the mandatory sentencing, we had no other choice but to get a mandatory life sentence. You could speak on yours, how you felt about the charges.
Oh, well, that's my first adult charge. I just turned 18. I turned 18 in August of that year and got arrested October that year. I was planning to go to the military. My father wanted me to go. He was a military guy, and he always told me that's what he wanted me to do. And I wanted to go, but unfortunately, I was arrested and falsely accused of this crime. Ended up going to prison and spending all of my 20s, 30s, and 40s, and 50s in prison.
Man, I feel sorry for you, sir. I feel sorry for both of y'all. I apologize that you guys went through that.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Thank you.
This is tough.
Well, giving us this forum to express us and inform people about what happened. That's really helpful. That's helpful.
Well, absolutely.
That's good. That's good that you're doing a great job in allowing us to do this because more people need to be aware of how the police, in collaboration with the DA office, past DA office, frame people and know people is innocent, but still take them to trial, withholding evidence on them, but they show they could have been innocent, getting convicted. They just linger in prison.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's very sad. Like I said, I'm from Long Island, New York. Y'all both are from Philly?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm from Long Island, New York. I'm not sure if you're familiar, Hempstead. Like I said, I'm pretty sure the same things, that's crazy stuff going on in Philly is going in Hempstead and Long Island and all over inner cities. Like here at Flight Sports, I try to talk to the youth. Like I said, in y'all case, y'all were just wrongfully convicted, but I try to talk to the youth just to avoid them. Do something else. Like prison is really not the place to go. Even though I haven't been there today, they're going to get an extensive look. Because like I said, I got a very good questions because this is the world needs to hear this. And also you talked about giving the platform. I also want to extend it further. I don't want this to be a one-off. I want to continue this. Like I said, I want to build relationships. I don't do one-offs. You understand? We build relationships and chemistry lasts forever. So like I said, this is gonna be a great conversation. So Cynthia, let's talk to you. When you get arrested, right? What is it like going through the motion before the court date? Are you lost? You don't know what's going on? Let us know a little bit what was in your mind during that time, if you could tell us.
So first, the very first thing I was charged with the capital charges, and as everybody knows, capital charges equals the death penalty. So when my lawyer came to see me about the first 2 weeks, and he was like, "Well, we have to get the capital murder charges dropped," I just started laughing. I was like, "Wait, the capital murder charges?" Like I was like, "Are you kidding me?" He was like, "No, it's not a joke." He was like, "You have a capital murder case." So that's when I started to venture off and studying the law, because I realized I was like, "Wait, the law states that you have to kill and rob the same person, right, in order to get capital charges." And that's when I realized that education was important. And I started to, frequent the law clinic a lot. And I started to understand something that's called mitigating circumstances that will lower the degrees of homicide. And I started to realize that the charges in our Constitution really wasn't applicable to poor, people. Period. And with that being said, I basically started educating myself on the law. However, the more educating that I did and the more fighting that I did, I realized that our system basically was meant to perpetuate the status quo, right? To leave the 1% rich and to keep us 99 oppressed. And it's something that I realized when all of the truth was there, but none of the truth mattered. In my case, there was apparently somebody that was robbed and killed. However, when I started looking through my discovery, I realized that there was never a robbery victim. And the 14th Amendment states that you have the right to cross-examine your accusers, right? Anybody that is accusing you of a crime, you have a right to cross-examine them with hopes that you would impeach their credibility. However, there was never a robbery victim. So that's like rule number one when I started to realize, wow, these people are proceeding with these charges. However, they don't have a victim for a robbery. So just to sum it up, the charges were really scary. My knowledge of the law kept growing. However, I became frustrated because I realized that they really were not interested in the truth. Because it was plain black and white that a robbery never happened because there was never a robbery victim. And that means that the robbery charges should have been thrown out. However, that did not happen. So it was very scary. On top of that, about 9 months before I went to trial, my co-defendant escaped the county jail where he was being held, which was right next door to mine. I was back on the news again. He was on America's Most Wanted. And this subjected me to physical abuse from the guards before I was even convicted. Because, my cousin was gone for 50 days. I was a product of rape by a prison guard. And, the crime went unpunished because I was afraid to speak out because my co-defendant had escaped and I was placed in solitary confinement for 240 days. So not even before I was able to even fight my case, I was already encountering what county jail was like, the biases, the racism, the people's lack of knowledge and just ignorance. I went through hell in the American criminal justice system and I'm a survivor. The system tried to break me. However, it turned me into a jailhouse lawyer who's very passionate about people in prison. And I try to understand people's circumstances before I just jump to judgment, right? Because not everybody in prison is guilty. But it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. My whole life was taken away from me. However, I stood strong and I'm here today as a very public activist. So.
Right. You're absolutely right about that. So I got a question. Did you cop out to the charges? Do you feel like, is that what happened?
So what happened was I won my appeal on the federal habeas level. That means that I won on my very last appeal. That means that I won on constitutional error. So my conviction was completely thrown out. I had a chance. The charges were not dropped because in Philadelphia, they just don't drop the charges, right? Because then they'll have tons of lawsuits. So what happened was the murder charges were still pending. I was still facing a same jury like I was, 12 years before. Except for this time around, I had already been sentenced to life without parole. And I already knew that the jurors really don't know shit about the law and that if I encounter them again, there could be some emotional people on there and I could be convicted solely for just emotions. And I wasn't trying to take that chance. And so basically I pled out. I pled third-degree murder with time served just to be able to get out of jail.
Wow, that's crazy. Oftentimes people do feel like that where they got to cop out because some of them charges feel tough. Mind you, I would have no knowledge of that. I've never been arrested before. I've never spent a day in jail. So like I said, I'm just soaking up game right now and just it's crazy. Definitely. I'm not gonna lie. Sir, I forgot. Can you remind me your name one more time? I'm so sorry.
All right, I understand.
It's Cheddar Whale.
Cheddar Whale. Okay, that'll be the last time I have to ask you that.
Don't worry about it. That's okay. It's okay.
It's CETEWAYO. Cheddar Whale.
Okay. So a question for you. Similar question. What happened with your case? Did you feel the need to cop out? Can you speak
Well,
and let everybody know the
let me
process
start
of
a
your?
little early. Well, first, when I got arrested, I was naive. I really believe that if you go to trial, there's no way in the world innocent people in America go to prison. In America, for centuries, masquerade all around the world about America got the best fair justice systems in the world. Me being naive, believed that, and I couldn't wait to go to trial because I knew as soon as I go to trial, I was going to go home and be free again. But that happened to trial, and like I said, they were full evidence that could show that I was not involved. My lawyer didn't have that advantage. So I was ended up found guilty of first-degree murder. Sent to prison. When I was in prison, I was really introduced to the harsh, racial, prejudice, class nature of prisons. It was brutal. I ended up spending 44 years of that 51 years in solitary confinement. And it was so dehumanizing. Right now today, I'm still traumatized by a lot of it.
You took your plea, though. That he's
Yeah.
I apologize.
So,
Go ahead.
now, after Krasner, DA Krasner came in office, I had appeals in that was getting denied. But I had this one post-conviction that my lawyer put in, and he asked them to review my case because of the amount of years I had in prison. They reviewed it, and they couldn't find anything in the DA office. So they sent DAs down to the police administration building, we know is around the house in Philly. They find information down there that the police and Clary Richard DA office withhold. Like I said, my lawyer wasn't privileged of getting that information what he could have used to show my innocence. And I was found guilty now. After being found guilty, I had to stay in prison 51 years. I thought at one point I would never get out. So when they reviewed my case and they said, well, look, how would you like to plead guilty for third degree murder and go home today? You take this deal, you can walk out right now today. And giving that my family and myself and a lot of friends saying, look, given the option, you should take it. Although I'm innocent, but going to trial again, I was scared. And basically coerced into taking it because initially they told me that I deserve exoneration. But then I believe the city told them no, because we had to pay them a whole lot of money. So I ended up taking this deal so I could walk out that day. And I was also told that if I didn't, I would have to wait probably next year to go to trial again. So I've been sitting more time in jail waiting to go to trial with the hopes of walking out.
Really, really quick, I must elaborate. So in both of our cases, I won on a federal level, right, which is the highest court, federal court, vacated my conviction. I had a dirty cop on my case, Ronald Dove, who was fired by the city of Philadelphia for destroying a crime scene, covering up a homicide for his girlfriend, right? In Cheddar Wales' case, he was granted his PCRA, also granted a new trial. And he had amazing evidence to go back. He had these statements that somebody else committed the crime. It basically goes to show how the criminal justice system, once you encounter it, it bends the way you think, right? Because you encounter the monster the first time. Here we go, two people that now have new trials with great evidence in winning our second trials. We were too afraid to go forward. So yes, we both pled guilty for third degree murder. But what my point is basically saying is that we both have great evidence to win. However, we were still afraid to go back the second time because we knew what life without parole was. So they kind of give you these pleas with hopes that you take it, where the city saves money. However, we're pleading to stuff that we did not do, but just to get out on desperate measures, we took plea bargains.
Yeah, I definitely at your magnitude. I've heard of that before. Like I said, plea deals coming in where people feel a need to take it. They felt pressure. What about your defense team? Who was your lawyer? Can anybody elaborate on that? We can start with you, Cynthia.
So I had a really, really one of the best law firms in Philadelphia. My lawyer was a woman. Her name was Susan M. Lynn, and she represented me on the federal habeas corpus, which is a process that could take up to 10 years, depending on how they drag their feet. It took us about 3.5 years before we won. She was amazing. We argued my same issue all the way up, that the judge misinstructed the jury on accomplice liability. And that is a due process violation because she basically told the jury that I could be an accomplice for aiding after. And for the accomplice charge, you need to meet all of the elements. So I had an amazing lawyer. I did a lot of my own legal work in prison, however, I knew that I needed a lawyer that was really good to go on the federal level if I really wanted to be taken seriously. Your lawyer?
I felt they had a pretty good lawyer. He done all he can do.
What's his
But
name?
remember, his name Prospel.
And Bradley.
Yeah. And well, he was a good lawyer. He just was fighting with his hands behind his back because he didn't have information that the J had. So he was only working with it was available to him.
No, the lawyer that you had this time around.
Oh, this time I had was Brett. This dude, Brett, he's a pretty progressive lawyer. Got a legal office, Abbotstan Law Center, which helps a lot of cases. Innocent people get out, wrongly convicted people get out of prison.
He was the lawyer that represented the juvenile lifers in Philadelphia. So he's a really, really big lawyer who basically fights a lot of, injustices like this. Bridge Bradley, right?
Yes.
Yes. And is it Brett Grove? Is it?
Yeah, Brett Grove.
Yes, Brett Grove.
Wow, this is unbelievable. So I got a question. What's inspiring you guys now? Like, obviously we know the situation, but what fuels the fire to get out and just dive into like criminal justice reform? Because most people might want to just get back to their life and how it was, and try to pick up where the pieces. What fuels this fire for you guys?
Well, for me, I could say that encountering the system and getting convicted for something I didn't do, and not only that, but being sentenced to life without parole, without no possibility of parole, was enough to light it up. But what keeps it ignited is the people that I left behind. A lot of my comrades that have been in there for 40, 50 years, these are women that are deserving of a second chance. A lot of women that I've seen have died innocent in there under the felony murder law. So every day that I'm free, yes, I'm very happy that I'm free. I understand that they don't have the same, luxuries that I have. And I wouldn't feel right if I didn't fight, because then I would feel that I would be complicit in the people that are oppressing them. So I do it for the people that I left behind, but also for the next little girl who's encountering the criminal justice system, to stand up and say, we're not going to stay here and take this. We're not going to just be quiet. We're not just going to go away. You destroyed our lives and you need to be held accountable, and everybody must know the truth. So mine is more leaning towards the truth.
Right.
Mine is similar. It's about helping those who in prison that's left behind. And I know, and that in addition to experiencing the brutalness of it, knowing that some people in there are innocent and they need help. And being a voice for them can help them, because it seems like other than the criminal justice reform groups, there's nobody else that's really involved in really aggressively trying to help them. So I feel it would be betrayal on my part not to try to help them, so the next person will have to go through the same thing.
Right. I got a question for you, Cynthia. Like I said, obviously you spent how many years again? Can you remind the people that's just joining in?
12 long years.
12 long years for the people that's just joining in. What is it like adapting like back into the regular life? Like, because you confined for 12 years. What is it like, love life, relationships, business, job, and just the full spectrum?
So basically, I can say that I lived basically in a world in the mountains for 12 years with a lot of women, right? So I didn't really encounter a lot of men. So the dynamic of a relationship with a man for me is completely new all over again. I came home to a world that I feel like is very disconnected, a world that is very shallow and has not a lot of substance. I find myself missing my comrades that are still behind the walls, because they have so much knowledge and so much insight as to like pain and things like that. I have a criminal record right now. I've been struggling to just find an apartment. I have all of the credentials. I have great credit. I have, great employment. However, because I have a criminal record, I've been turned down for 3 apartments already. The stigma of being labeled a killer, right, when I never killed anybody, is not easy. But more importantly is the trauma that I have to live with, knowing that, I was raped in jail, and that, what I went through could have been avoided. What the guard did to me, he did to me right before trial. And it really broke my spirit, because I was already encountering a harsh system. And on top of that, I had to live with these memories inside of my head that I had to suppress for years. So living with the trauma, living with all the suicides that I had to see in there, and the women that, died innocent in there from cancer, is enough to just put your mind in a really unhealthy place. So I deal with a lot of mental health issues, and I deal with a lot of isolation and a lot of people really not understanding me. So it hasn't been easy, however, because I'm used to fighting in there so much. I'm always on survival mode, but I hope that I get to the place where I could just be happy and just know what it feels like to just experience love.
Right, definitely. Like I said, it's crazy. Before we get into the gentleman here, I want to talk about everybody. Remind people that's going on that's just joining. Miss Cynthia just said that she's having a hard time getting an apartment and things of that nature. People don't understand these criminal records. It stifles you. You understand? It puts you in a tough situation, to get a house, to get a car, to get anything. I mean, to get a job. I mean, look what Miss Cynthia is having to do, jump hurdles and still fighting. And here to this day, being productive and making a difference in society right now. I mean, seriously, here at Flight Sports TV, we want to pay homage to you right now. Definitely. We definitely respect you. Now, for my man Cheddar, can we hear your story, please, sir?
Well, transition. My just was released in August of this year.
Wow.
I'm still going through the transition.
And I don't mean to cut you off. Let everybody know the time and how much time, because we got a lot of people that's just joining.
51 years.
51 years.
44 to spend South Deck confinement, where you can find to yourself for 23 hours a day, 5 days. I mean,
23 and 1, right?
I definitely want to talk about that. We want to get into solitary confinement after this one. This was tough. That's crazy.
Right.
How has it been adjusting?
So adjustment has been like somewhat good, but hey, now when I was in South Deck confinement, I had to go to federal court to get released from South Deck confinement because the judge ruled it was cruel and unusual punishment. Now in this process, they had ordered psychiatrists to interview me, determine how much damage this was doing to me. And one of the psychiatrists ruled that I was suffering from social death. So coming out in the streets, not used to being around people, it was really unnerving for me a lot. And I was like paranoid sometimes. I had this isolationist type of mentality that I wanted to basically stay in a room by myself. Well, didn't really want to talk to a lot of people. Then a lot of friends of mine and family members would encourage me, you got to come out, you got to move around, you got to learn how to socialize. Otherwise, because it was relatively new to me. Being by yourself for so many years in a small cell can really take a terrible toll on you. You become isolation. I found refuge in being by myself, not talking to people. So I'm still trying to work through that process right now.
I think that the American criminal justice system pretty much ruined this man's life with interaction with other human beings. What he considers a conversation could be something was in yelling form, right? Like where people normally talk when they communicate. He never had that. So having to adjust not only to the new world, but having to live with all of the stuff that he endured in there, I can imagine like what you're going through. But I've seen in his adjustment, he's making some improvements, with communication and being more social, but I could still see where he struggles with it a lot as well.
Right. Yeah, that's another thing people don't understand. It seemed like almost like post-traumatic. Am I going the right direction here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, like I said, I feel sorry that you're going through that. It's very tough. But you spoke about solitary confinement. I definitely want to talk about that because, like I said, it's no joking matter. It's very real. If you could give people just a glimpse, because we have a younger audience, who's influenced by a lot. They got a lot of pitfalls. They want to follow behind the cool people, things of that nature. Can you give people a glimpse of what it's like to be in solitary confinement?
Well, it's like horror. It's like being in a graveyard where you're stuck in this small cell. You go out 5 days a week, you get an hour yard. 3 times a week, you take a shower for about 5-10 minutes. And the rest of the time, you're found in a cell. When I first went in the 70s, you weren't allowed books, magazines, newspaper, nothing. You was only given 10 pieces of writing paper, 10 envelopes, an ink pen you could use a few hours a day, a few hours in the evening time. And that was your whole life. That was it. You was given half rations of food. You was cold all the time because in the wintertime they would turn the heat off and that's used as part of punishment. Food was used as punishment, you get half rations. So when you hungry, that's when I really first in my life experienced that. You can't sleep. All you think about is food all day long, and you lightheaded all the time. And that was how solitary confinement was for a lot of years.
Constant screaming, no
constant,
television.
Yeah, nothing. It was brutal.
Come out on a dog leash.
Yeah,
like you're an animal.
They come out on a dog leash like an animal. It was brutal for a long time. Then, it's improved a little. It's time where, as a result of people protesting, groups in the streets becoming aware of what was going on, and of course, forced them to make some changes.
Right. Yeah, like I said, this is a tough situation. Y'all, all the kids that's watching, but Betty, before I give them the advice, do you have any advice for any young men right now? General Wells, Cheddar Wells, pardon me, sir.
Yes.
Can you give us some advice for the young men out there that they need to hear this?
It sounds cliche a lot of times, but I think they should do all they can to avoid going to prison and try to live the life in this world that do offer you some opportunity to do things that you can enjoy. Because right now, like it's going on in Philadelphia, you got like mass murder going on in Philadelphia. A lot of guys don't see this being, they think that's some gangsterism. But they're going to, if they continue to do that, they're going to find out down the line the vicious mistake they made. Because you can make just one mistake and you pay your rest of your life for it.
And also how exploiting women, how you talk about that a lot.
How exploiting women, and mostly exploiting women and taking advantage of anybody and everybody, because this whole culture that's evolved around this false machoism towards women and other people are from the same class or race they're from. It is terrible, and they're absorbing this stuff and they're expressing this stuff, and it's going to lead to a lot of their doom. A lot of them don't recognize it now because they're young, running around doing all this stuff. Once they get in the prison system, they're going to find out how brutal that stuff is. And all that being tough, they're finding how tough you is.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody that's tough is a guy in there tougher, is somebody in there tougher than you, man.
Yeah.
I would definitely advise people, they definitely need to just stay in school, get a job, start a business, things of that nature, so you're not involved in a situation like this.
And try to enjoy life.
And also don't live up to the capitalist expectations that, you're going to have all of this designer stuff, that you're going to have the Maybach, the Bentley. Yes, we live in America, and where American dreams are possible, we have to be realistic that class, right, plays a big dynamic in our lives, because we'll never be like the 1%. So we could keep striving to be like them, whether it's through, selling drugs, doing illegal activities. You're never going to get to the point where they are, because it's a big fat lie. You're going to fall all in between, and you're going to find yourself in a cell in prison with no friends, because I promise you, people fall off. People forget about you when you're in prison. You're so far away, and nothing really matters when you're in there. Your priorities change, your perspectives change. You learn not to care so much about materialistic things because you see the suffering of people. You learn to be more honest and caring of others. And where, like he said, it might sound cliche, but it's true. Nothing matters when your freedom is at stake, and nothing matters in life but being kind and trying to make the world a better place,
Absolutely. I want to add into that. Like I said, I've never done prison time. I've never been arrested. But like I said, I'm from Hempstead. I have a lot of friends. Like I said, they've been through trials and tribulations. Like I said, everybody knows somebody that's been through something like that, not to the extent of you guys, but I will like to tell people, like I said, the younger audience watching, the most important thing you got is not money. You understand? It's time. You understand? And like I said, so if you got, no amount of money is worth 40, 50 years of your life. You understand? 100,000, 10,000, 50, a million. None of it is worth 20 to 50 years of your life. You understand? Because what they're going to take from you is your time. You understand? That's the most important thing you got is time.
You can never get back.
Sometimes you think money is the most important thing, but no, it's time. So that's what they take from you when these things happen, your time. You understand? So that's, you got to be very cognizant of that. And I want to talk to people, because you was talking about where people lose and things of that nature. You lose, I want to give young people a horror story, because a lot of young people, they on their high horses, they might be running around doing this, doing that. like I said, in school chasing behind women, thinking, maybe they got a girlfriend, they want to impress her because they want to do this, that, and the third. I want to tell y'all, when y'all go, or whoever you're doing crimes with, if you're in a position to, the person you with more than likely is going to tell on you. Yes. You understand? You're going to go to jail. You're going to go to prison. Wifey, you see wifey who you got? She going to be with somebody else. You understand? It might be your best friend. You understand? You might come back home. She might be pregnant. You only did a year or two. You understand? It gets that real. I just want to let all the young men out there that think fooling around in these streets is real. It's not. No, nobody comes to visit you. Mom Duke's the one you neglecting. You understand? The one that you giving her your behind the kiss. That's going to be the one putting money on your books. That's going to be the one visiting you. Now, I mean, that's why I just want to let people know. So people need to cherish their parents, because when you in the jam, those are the people that's going to be there for you. Not your man, not this one, not that one. Once you gone, they're going to be doing something else. Sure. So I just want to let all y'all know, get on track, get on top of your game, and like I said, continue to hear some game. We're not done. I just wanted to let people know, because they might be able to hear a little better from me, especially that side, because they need to understand that horror. You understand? You calling home, maybe I was in an extensive relationship. It's not just the movies. I see it all the time. Like I said, I grew up in the inner city. I had friends who got arrested. His girl, she was messing around with the dude up the block. And they was cool. You understand? It happens like this. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, a lot is not important, y'all. You understand? Do the right thing, like she said. Hey, be kind. Go ahead, Mr. Wells.
A lot of the younger guys that's out there now that's aggressive, they can be aggressive and do it with honor by helping make the world a better place. And they can release their aggression in more positive ways and more honorable ways. Right now, the country and the world is in a scramble. And they can do a whole lot to help improve that. And they can be aggressive and anything else they want to be in that pursuit of that.
Right.
Giving them a better perception of who they should become, right?
Yeah.
A better perception, another alternative as to who they could become. And once you encounter the police, even if you're innocent or not, police lie. Police put false evidence on you. I mean, you see in our cases. So even where you might think, well, I got the best lawyer, I could spank this. Once you go in front of a jury with whatever evidence is in front of you and you think you're going home because the jury is going to let you off, you might have some emotional jurors who are racist. You might have some that come from different classes. They don't understand us. You have implicit biases. So you're not just dealing with a charge or what you got arrested for, you're dealing with a systemic problem. And then so you really realize that, you're really not going to understand it. And we're trying to avoid you guys from going to prison, because once you're in there, you're not going to see your relatives when they die. You're not going to get medication when you have cancer. They're not going to give you shit but a Tylenol. It's the real deal when you go in there. It's a cold world. It really, really it is.
Absolutely. It would be remiss not to bring in our co-host, All Access Dex. Dex, you in the building?
Yes, sir. I'm in the building. Shout out to Flight Sports TV, the machine, voice of the voiceless, the people's champ, the hottest shit in the streets right now.
That's right.
Flight Sports TV is very diversified with the open content, and we appreciate you, Flight, for bringing this subject to the forefront, because it's most needed, and it is definitely definitely needs to be heard by the masses, because these stories are true. You're not watching a movie. This is actuality, fellas and ladies. This is actuality, what you're witnessing right now. It is devastating to hear a man like Chet spending 51 years of his precious life incarcerated for a crime he didn't commit. It is horrific to hear the story from the beautiful, I believe, CYNTHIA story, that she was incarcerated 12 years of her productive life and reproductive life, incarcerated for a crime that she didn't commit, and a whole lot of prosecutorial misconduct going on in both of their trials, and the system needs to be revamped, and the people that's running the system needs to be replaced. It is god awful to hear these type of stories coming from people that I feel has a beautiful spirit.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely right. I totally agree. This was definitely wonderful. Like I said, we definitely got some questions. I want to get some questions from the chat because they definitely had some. The first one was for Cynthia. They said, the Rap Guy Reloaded says, how much did you had to combat against social injustice? And then what can innocent citizens like myself do to help those who are wrongfully convicted of crimes?
Well, first of all, the social injustice was horrible because my rights were violated when I was charged for what someone else did. So the felony murder law in all 50 states needs to be abolished because it is unconstitutional to give somebody, it violates your due process, your individual culpability. So it doesn't just look at the person who committed the crime, but they're violating my rights because I did not commit the crime. I think how you could help us is basically holding the lawmakers where you live accountable, where they stand for, ending life without parole sentences or abolishing second-degree felony murder, and not to be judgmental in cases because even though me and Chadaweo made it out, there's many of our comrades who are innocent in there. Yes, there's some people that have committed crimes, but there's many of my comrades who are innocent, who were just with a cousin who committed a crime and did not want to testify because they wanted to exercise their Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. So I think it's being less judgmental, more open-minded, and understanding that, the system is meant to perpetuate the status quo, to keep the 1% living in their bourgeoisie homes while the 99% of us are encountering prison because we don't have enough money or, because of our environments, we're prejudiced or we have implicit biases against us. So I think educating the people as to what really prison is about, right? It's really not about rehabilitation. It's really not about change. It's more about warehousing people and getting money, right, for the 1%. So I think like voting on ending life without parole sentences where it says someone cannot change is a start, and abolishing felony murder in any of the states because it's unconstitutional to hold someone accountable for a crime they did not commit. So thank you.
Right. Great question. I also have a question. Like I said, I've never been to prison, but is it like how it is on TV? I just got a question.
No, not at all. Not at all.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
TV makes it look great.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to know, especially prison, because jail and prison is two different things.
Yeah.
I think some people forget that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
County prisons is for people supposed to be not guilty. I'm innocent proven guilty, which is not true though, because they've been punished. And prisons for those who is presumed to be guilty.
Convicted. The
They're
prison is for the
convicted,
convicted, and the county jails are for those waiting trials.
Yeah.
Right, great points. Yeah, I know about that already. Like I said, we don't have a prison in Long Island. I actually went on a school trip to Sing Sing. I'm not sure if y'all familiar with that, but it wasn't for Scared Straight. It was just to talk. It was just to like talk to people. I talked to one prisoner. He had double life. I went in the food court. They was eating franks and beans. They was talking about an item called mystery meat. Are you familiar with that?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Dog meat, mystery meat.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the hell is that.
You don't know what it is. You don't know what it is.
It's like something that they done mixed up back there.
Yeah, I have a question for the lovely guest, if I may, Flight.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, brother. Now you're from Philly, and we know one of the biggest celebrity in the hip hop industry that's a part of prison reform is Meek Mills, and Meek Mills have been attached to Rock Nation with Jay-Z, who's also a hip hop mogul, and he's a part of the prison reform. Have any of these gentlemen or representatives from these gentlemen camps have heard your story and contacted you, or do you have any type of affiliation with their camps or either Van Lathan about the prison reform?
No, I'm going to speak out first and say that Meek Mill was arrested for popping a wheelie, right? We were in prison for murder charges. So where our situations might be different and where they want to reform the system, I haven't seen any of them, and I'm very biased about people that put their names on criminal justice reform, because a lot of times when it involves money, people get funny, right? So with that being said, it hasn't affected none of my comrades who are upstate, and I haven't seen any effects of it. So I would have to say no. That I'm very biased of big names, and it hasn't affected none of my comrades who are in state prisons right now. So I don't see where we have benefit from it. Have you, Chuck?
No, I'm saying no benefit of it either.
Man, that's crazy, Dax. No, we got to keep an eye on where the stuff is going.
Yes, sir. That's why I brought the question up, because they in Meek Mill's backyard.
You're right about that. Philly is crazy, like you said. Philly is a cesspool right now. All the stuff going on in Philly, so it's crazy, man.
I think, like, really, really quick to go further, I think the boots on the ground, the organizations like Straight Ahead, Toward Abolition, CADB, Let's Get Free, Women Life for Resume Projects, those are the boots on the ground. These are the people that have been fighting for years. Here you have celebrities that put their name on something and there's like, oh, they're fixing the problem. Not true. The people that have been fighting boots on the ground have been doing this for years. That's how I was able to get traction for the juveniles, in Pennsylvania, and it got traction all around all 50 states, that we were housing children inside of state prisons. And eventually SCOTUS got the case, and they used the brain argument, which was they won. However, it was talking about the kids nonstop. So I think that a lot of the grassroots organizations gets left behind out of conversations when you hear like big names like this. So I just want to make sure that we give them a shout out, because they're the real heroes that are really fighting for these changes on a daily basis, not just whenever it's time to take a pic and put a name on something.
You're absolutely right about that. So like I said, we in closing, is there anything like anything that you might want to say? We're gonna get into shout outs as well. And anything to give anybody like a lasting imprint, you both, I'll give you guys as much time as you need. If you want to leave the people with something that they can hold on to, mind you, everybody, this is not the last you have seen of them. They will be back. You understand? It's Flight Sports TV.
Yes. So really, really quick, out of all 50 states, federal statute states that states are allowed to adopt compensation for the wrongfully convicted. However, only 13 states decided to adopt that into law. However, Pennsylvania does not have compensation for the wrongfully convicted. So I believe that Pennsylvania needs to compensate the wrongfully convicted. And even when we take pleas and our sentences were vacated, it stands as a wrongful conviction because the courts prosecuted us illegally and we won. So our wrongful conviction stands. However, we were not exonerated. So I think that when they do pass a compensation for the wrongfully convicted, they need to leave the word exonerate out of the conversation, because not many of us are exonerated because we're coerced into taking pleas because we're afraid to face the monster again. So we stand for compensation for the wrongfully convicted in Pennsylvania.
What I like to say is this: for a lot of people that believe in criminal justice reform, because loved ones, friends are in prison, they could be really vital in helping change that by start leveraging their vote. Not just vote for politicians that talk and don't do anything. Vote for politicians that commit themselves to issues that's important to you. And we as a voting bloc can ensure that these individuals support our agenda, what it might be, wherever it might be, or they don't get your votes. I think you go a long way in forcing them to start voting for what of interest to the people, as opposed to what they do now is basically vote for the interests of wealthy people, because they get campaign contributions from them. Absolutely. But they get votes from us. And without them votes, they can never get in office.
You're right about that. It's definitely a good process. Everybody need to pay attention to what he just said, so you guys can understand the process. Like you said, Mr. Wells, like I said, Cynthia, they will be back, like I said, to talk more extensive, because here at Flight Sports TV, we support y'all. You understand? We got your back. We want to do whatever we can do at our level to help. You let us know. My man, All Access Dex, the co-host, you understand, management team. That's why I said he will be in contact with you guys on IG. You understand? Like I said, we had to build a relationship, long-standing relationship.
You want to help us? let's come back so we can constantly try to
Listen.
inform the people of what's going on. What they can do.
Absolutely. You can come back here every single week. You understand? The doors, you can come back tomorrow. The door is open for you whenever you want. You understand? For both of y'all. You understand? This is y'all channel. It belongs to the people. You got something you need to say, you feel something on your heart, you hit me up and say, hey, I need to come in and talk. We're going to make that happen for you. We're going to open up the door for you and provide the platform for you to speak. You understand? And also, we even bring you in the middle of a game because, you know, this is the sports show. We might want to bring you in because everybody might need to hear this, you know. We might bring y'all in for halftime and really do it. I think that's next. We're going to bring y'all in for a halftime show and we're going to do it right. You know, but I tell you what, this was a hell of an interview.
We know all about winning, bro. We won. We're winners.
Oh yeah, I know.
You know about the big W.
and you out here giving other people big W's. You understand? And hope. You understand? If you can't provide the W right away, you provide hope, and that's priceless.
For the W, yes.
Yes, that's priceless.
Go ahead. Also, I'd like to share this right here. You beautiful souls of Philly. You know, you come from the city of brotherly love, but we know there's not enough brotherly love in the city of Philly.
Brotherly slugs.
Exactly. Right. That's a misnomer. We understand that. Are you familiar with the judge that was recently sentenced because he was selling juveniles to the incarceration system, the justice system? Are you familiar with that? I mean, that scandal?
Yes.
A judge was getting paid to send juveniles to be incarcerated, whether they was guilty or not. He was giving them harsher sentence than he deserved, and he was getting paid to do it.
It doesn't shock us because they want to perpetuate the status quo. They want to leave the rich and leave the poor at any cost, even if it's hijacking our communities. This is why we do what we do and we educate the people, because people really need to know the truth. Where we think we're having a ball and we're just defending our friend and we're taking a case for them, they're basically getting rich and destroying our families in the process. And it's not freaking cool.
Exactly. And also in the late 80s and early 90s, there was another controversy dealing with Pennsylvania Department of Correction, where they was basically buying inmates from the District of Columbia. The District of Columbia, Washington, D.C., wanted to keep their incarceration rate low. So I believe at that time they only have basically like one real prison for them. That was in Norton. And for the political climate in Washington, D.C. at the time, with, you know, the Marion Barry era, and this is now an attack on Marion Barry because we already know he have his history, that they were sending inmates to Schuylkill, Pennsylvania, because they wanted to puff up Pennsylvania's incarceration rate because of funding, and they want to decrease Washington, D.C. incarceration rate because that's the nation capital. Because that would be political suicide to have the nation capital leading the nation incarceration. So it was a big scandal with that. And I think Philadelphia, I think the state of Pennsylvania has never recovered. And once that scandal, once the lid blew off that scandal, right? And nobody wanted to go down that rabbit hole. So I believe what happened with the state of Pennsylvania, they just turned in on themselves and started eating their own. And I believe some of you guys, especially you, beautiful young lady, was a victim of that. Chat was a little bit before that era. He was a victim of another kind of era, but you was probably victim of that scandal that was going down with the state of Pennsylvania in the District of Columbia.
Not only that,
abominable.
But also when I was at SCI Muncie, I realized that I was from Philadelphia, right? So the resources that, should have went to Philadelphia. However, Muncie was counting my body there when I was from a different region just to meet the census in that area so that they could get federal funding. So
wow.
During all of that, finally it's done, but they hijack our bodies into these rural areas so that they could sustain their communities, while the money that is being handed down for somebody who's incarcerated should go to my children, and the children in the community so they could get better educations. However, we're giving it to the kids in those areas. dangerous. So it's been
Wow.
for a long time. The system is corrupt. It's not about corrections, it's about corruption, and that's why we're here.
Exactly. And I appreciate you guys for coming, sharing your story, because you could have kept that to yourself and just live your life in obscurity. But no, you bring it out. You take the ridicule that comes with it, and it's beautiful, because what they did to you beautiful souls was abomination. And you know, karma's a bitch that never sleep. And hopefully that you have your part two of injustice.
Yeah. So true.
Well, any shout outs before we get up out of here? You know, I'll give you the floor.
I want to shout out Philadelphia Larry Krasner, who was the first progressive DA in the whole entire world. He's doing an amazing job. I want to shout out our comrades who are sentenced right now to life without parole, who are still enduring the harsh system. Hold on, my sisters, because we're coming for you guys. And shout out everybody in New York for listening to us. Thank you.
I endorse that.
Right. I agree with you. Dex, any shout outs before you get up out of here?
I endorse that. No, it's the same one.
Oh, yeah, Dex. My bad. Dex, you got any shout outs?
Yeah. Shout out to the panel, the beautiful spirits that sit up here sharing that story, because it touched my heart most definitely. Because we know these things are happening, and a lot of times we like to bury our heads in the sand to the reality of what happens in some of underprivileged communities, and we scapegoat it with sports and things of that nature to distract us, so we won't be crying about what we're actually witnessing. So by them coming up here sharing their journey, which was horrific in some aspects, but to somebody else that's listening, it could be a joyful moment, and something that they heard today could probably deter them from continuing in a life of crime. That part about the what you call it, the SHOE program. I believe that's what they call it, the SHOE program, where you have the 23-hour lockdown and 1 hour of relief. That is devastating to any kindred spirit, because we know that God created us to be free and create us to multiply and replenish the earth. And there's no way that could be met if you're wrongly convicted and put in a 23-hour lockdown, 1 hour up. So that right there is justice against nature, and it's justice against the human family of the planet Earth.
Thank you.
Absolutely. But like I said, I believe this is the beginning of a long-standing relationship. Cynthia, I appreciate you. We will be in contact. Like I said, Dex will be in contact. Like I said, this is just the beginning, and like we want this on the regular. I'm not just saying this because it sounds good. We want this.
Let us know. Your
services, and also, like I said, I'm gonna refer you to someone else I know, because this story needs to get out, who also hosts another show. Because I'm gonna help you get this story out, Cynthia, and also you, Mr. Wells. I'm here to help, so hit me up whenever. I don't care. 2 a.m. Let me know, or we're gonna make it happen. It's Flight Sports TV.
Because we endured hell, and I promise you, if we would have never won, we would have died in there, because nobody gets out in PA. So we're miracles, and we want to make sure we keep telling our story so that people. Shit, I ended it.
It's okay. We got you.
Sorry, guys. Phone went off.
It's okay. We got you. So we appreciate y'all. We getting up out of here. Y'all enjoy yourself. It's Flight Sports.
Flight Sports TV, man. That's my dude. I rolls with him.
You heard what the man said. It's Flight Sports TV.